Happening right now on Capitol Hill, explosive testimony underway at a House hearing on the Biden family's alleged influence peddling. The first son, Hunter, was invited to testify publicly, something he himself has called for many times. He said he wanted to testify publicly. But when the hearing started, his chair was empty. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany, here with my co-host, Emily Compagno. Also joining us, Fox & Friends co-host Ainsley Earhardt, president of KA Consulting, Fox News contributor and former senior counselor to President Trump, Kellyanne Conway, and Fox News contributor Joe Concha. But first, let's go live to David Spunt with more details. David.
Hi, Kayleigh. Republicans insist that this hearing that's been going on for 2 hours is truly about influence peddling, a large problem they see in Washington, D.C. Democrats say it's just another opportunity for Republicans to show an empty chair with the name tag Hunter Biden. Well, lo and behold, there you go. There is an empty chair seated between two witnesses with the name tag Hunter Biden. He did not show up today, but in between, or on each side, I should say, of that empty chair, two polar opposite witnesses. The first is a Democrat witness, Lev Parnas, a former Rudy Giuliani associate who served a brief time behind bars. Democrats say he was close to Giuliani and Trump world and can explain influence peddling related to Donald Trump, though not to Joe Biden. Watch this.
The American people have been lied to by Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani. I found precisely zero evidence of the Biden's corruption in Ukraine.
Republicans have Tony Bobulinski in the room today. He's the former Hunter Biden business associate. He said he met with Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and Jim Biden. He says, full stop, Joe Biden is the brand, and the Biden family made its living off influence peddling.
Joe Biden was more than a participant in and a beneficiary of his family's business. He was an active, aware enabler.
Also in attendance today, Kayleigh, Jason Galanis, a former Hunter business associate who's serving 14 years behind bars in federal prison for securities fraud.
He's sitting in prison for scamming workers' pensions. I mean, how low can you get?
But Republicans say they will continue their inquiry, possibly move to criminal referrals for the Department of Justice. I will note Devin Archer, another Hunter business associate, you see the theme here of Hunter business associates, declined to come today after his attorney said they only were made aware of this just a few days ago. Kayleigh.
David, keep us updated. Thank you. So Tony Bobulinski began by describing himself, Ainsley, his military service, his long history with the military. He's a successful businessman. He's a very credible witness. He has no motive here in not telling the truth. And here was his allegation against President Biden. Listen.
They had sort of coached me before Joe showed up to, listen, we're going to just keep things at a very high level. We're not going to go into a lot of details in this meeting. And I just remember that discussion generally because it just struck me as odd, honestly. Joe wasn't in the White House then, that they were sort of framing it that way. And then Joe showed up, walked through the lobby of the Beverly Hilton Hotel. I stood up to shake his hand, and we sat down and spent 45 minutes to an hour going through my background.
You met with him that long?
Yes. This wasn't a handshake, a 2-second discussion about the weather. This was a 45-minute long meeting to an hour where we talked about a lot of stuff. If Joe Biden was not involved in his son's business dealings, why, after flying all the way across the country to the Milken Conference, where there is next to Davos, is probably the biggest conference in the world, why would he take 45 minutes out of his night? It wasn't a 10 a.m. meeting. It was 10:40 in the evening. He's an elderly man, flew all the way across country to sit with me for 45 minutes to an hour.
He raises a great point, Ainsley.
Yeah, he does. He absolutely does. I have so many questions like he does. Why? This is what I wrote down this morning. Why would Biden care about this prosecutor getting fired in Ukraine? Why would his son be on the board of Burisma when he's addicted to drugs? Why would China, a Chinese energy company, if you have that much money, you're smart about who you invest with. Why would a Chinese energy company pay millions of dollars to Hunter Biden when he's addicted to drugs? Why are all the grandkids getting, big fat paydays? Why Hunter, why didn't he show up today when he wanted this public hearing? He doesn't show up. If he doesn't have anything to hide, you show up. And you're right about his reputation. He said every man in his immediate family is served in the military. You can tell he's serious about this. Why would he betray a guy that he was in business with if he didn't want to just tell the truth?
Yeah, he called himself a patriot and a truth teller, and that's what I see when I watch him. Emily, there's someone who desperately wants to stop this hearing. His name is Jamie Raskin, and I couldn't get over the fact that if there's nothing to see here, it's all smoke, like nothing to see, why do you have to interrupt Bob Alinsky multiple times? Why do you have to try to stop this? Let's bring in Jamie Raskin.
Hunter Biden's defense attorney, Abby Lowell, weaponizes letters to Congress to try to smear my name
Mr.
and
Chairman.
misstate the cold hard facts
Mr. Chairman.
in an attempt to save his powerfully connected client and his father.
Mr. Bobulinski, please proceed.
Okay.
Please proceed. Yes.
Just 2 points. One is I believe Mr. Bobulinski went over 2 minutes, 14 seconds. I see that we now have a witness appearing remotely, and I thought that witnesses were required to appear in person under the rules adopted by the majority at the beginning of the Congress. And do we have a new practice with respect to that rule?
I mean, just let the witnesses speak, Jamie.
There's nothing more disrespectful than an interrupter. I have seen it firsthand with Jamie Raskin. He never fails to confirm that everything is always about him. That's just one example of why I hold no respect for him. So I want to go back to Tony Bobulinski for a second, because he raises a very important question, which is why, if the Bidens act above board, if there is nothing to hide, why have they continued to engage in such deep-seated lies, such deep-seated denials in terms of transcript and testimony? Why are they perjuring themselves over and over again? Not just slight, it's not this, but actual lies. If they have nothing to hide, to your point, show up and also just tell the truth. And he goes through line by line. He gives 3 really important examples of perjury that Hunter Biden has engaged in, including timelines. He said, well, he says he started work with CEFC in spring of 2017. I was with him at that time when he was shouting to them about paying him for years prior of work. He said he's maintained that the President Biden, vice president at the time, never met with business associates, not once. I met with him. I was a business associate. He talks about the money and threats and demands Hunter Biden made of CEFC, and he goes through line by line and think about how the Biden family has sought to impugn him and his credibility in his testimony. It's that he is, they say, a convicted felon, that they say he's been charged with things, and that's how, as you saw earlier, Democratic congressmen and senators say that same thing, ascribe it. But Hunter's the same. So don't throw that stone unless your glass house isn't made of glass. So shouldn't they then take their own advice and say, well, Hunter's a convicted felon too, so I guess nothing he says is worth a dang anyway?
Kellyanne, it's clear that Biden did not tell the truth, right?
Yes.
The evolving story of I was not involved. Devin Archer said he was on speakerphone 20 times. So there's a lot here. But the question is, does this move the needle with the American public?
It does. I'll tell you why. Joe Biden hasn't built up the grace and the goodwill with the American public. They don't think he's handling the issues they say are most important to them and their families particularly well. So I think if you can excuse a leader's conduct because they're actually delivering for you, we've seen that in the past, right, left, and center. That's not the case with Joe Biden. I think people looking for an excuse to vote against him now have a reason to vote against him. But I want to back up. If you want Hunter Biden to show up at your hearing, you can't hold him in the morning. And also for Bob Alinsky, Bob Alinsky says that every man in his family, immediate family, has served in the military. Every man in Joe Biden's immediate family has benefited from this corruption. And now people are under oath. And here, Kaylee, is why I think the answer to your question, will it move the needle, is yes. Joe Biden was not under oath in that debate against President Trump. Joe Biden wasn't under oath when Fox News' Peter Doocy asked him, and others have asked him, did you discuss this with your son? He's never been under oath. Now these people are under oath. They can go to jail for perjury, penalty of perjury. And so now the testimonies and the tale is very different. We're placing him at the scenes of the crime, if you will. Last point, I think that it's hard for us any of us to understand how the Bidens made money off of Joe Biden. We listen to him every day for free and don't want to. So who was paying for all this? It's a good question.
It's a very good question. You know, politically, Joe, I mean, there's a one-seat majority now for Republicans. Now Kevin McCarthy's seat won't be filled. It will be filled likely by a Republican, but in 2 months. So where does this go in terms of impeachment?
It goes nowhere, right? In other words, even if you get an impeachment in the House, as we saw with President Trump, you have to get a 2/3 conviction in the Senate. So this is something that it's a lot of noise right now. Speaking of noise, Tony Bobulinski was like Tyson Bobulinski, like Mike Tyson Bobulinski. I love the first line that he had. Should I allow Hunter to give his opening statement first? And we know why Hunter Biden wasn't there, right? Because he would have to defend the indefensible, and it would be like watching a human meltdown, like on a Chernobyl level. What Democrats are hoping for here is that the media will not cover this, or they will dismiss it or mock the hearings. And sure enough, during the morning, I've checked over and over again, CNN, MSNBC, they are not covering this because, well, that would be uncomfortable to the president that they serve.
Right. You always bring the receipts, Joe Conchit. I know you have a lot more receipts, so save
It's
them up.
tax time. I always keep receipts.
We need to see Hunter's receipts.
Smart move.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.